Discover the incredible life-changing truth. Be the heartwarming hero you never knew you were. In the small, worn-out town of Millfield, where the streets echoed with forgotten laughter, Jake Dawson, a humble mechanic, woke up each day to the same blend of hope and heartache. At 38, he worked in his grease-stained garage, his hands perpetually coated in oil and dirt, while his mother, Ellen, sat on the porch waiting for her son to find the space to breathe. The weight of caring for his aging mother and bright, determined daughter, Mia, clung to him like a second skin. They meant the world to him, and Jake poured every bit of his heart into keeping their world afloat, but Millfield was struggling, beset by economic despair, with old family values crumbling under the pressure of prejudice against newcomers. People eyed each other suspiciously, whispers circulated like tumbleweeds, and friendships started fraying like old cloth. When Tom, a well-respected veteran, suffered a sudden medical emergency, the tension in town erupted. Instead of rallying for one of their own, fear clouded the air. Would they allocate scarce resources to help Tom? Or should they focus on their own dwindling hopes? Jake stood at the crux, feeling the weight of it all. With every tick of the clock in his crowded garage, he anxiously ran his fingers through Mia's hair, worried he wouldn't be enough. And then something extraordinary sparked within him. Maybe he could rally the community, put their hearts together, show them that compassion should outweigh fear. He envisioned an enormous gathering, a true community event to honor Tom, to remind them what it meant to stand together. Just as he began sharing his thoughts, cracks formed in the facade of camaraderie. Old biases creeped in, stoked by fear and an unwillingness to embrace change. Folks argued in hushed tones, judgments threatened to tear at the fabric of Millfield even further. Jake's heart sank. Could he really make a difference, or was he simply chasing an impossible dream? As tension swelled, emotion sparked, the pushback grew relentless. Disparaging looks replaced the warm smiles of yesteryears. And suddenly, there was an overwhelming moment. Jake's chest tightened, his breath quickened, but he held firm. He couldn't back down now. Even as doubt clawed at him, the flicker of hope in Mia's eyes anchored him. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Just when Jake felt the gravity of his efforts crushing him, a surprising act of kindness from someone he never expected sparked a glimmer of hope. That unpredictable ally ignited the first volleys of understanding from others, stirring cold hearts in the warm embrace of shared memories. Jake's determination surged, but uncertainty still loomed large. Would this act be enough to mend the rifts before it was too late? As the community gathered for the crucial meeting, Jake's heart raced. Would they come together as a united front or remain stuck in their old ways? Today, the outcome would leave an imprint not just on Tom's life, but on Millfield itself. With the weight of potential on his shoulders, Jake stood at the crossroads. Could they truly overcome their differences, or would the shadows of doubt once again hold them captive? In the air, the anticipation crackled. A moment was about to unfold, and Jake just hoped he'd be able to inspire the change they needed. The town hall buzzed with an uneasy energy. Jake glanced around, taking in familiar faces, each marked by the weight of their worries. Some were skeptical, arms crossed tightly, while others fidgeted, the discomfort evident as they exchanged hesitant glances. They were all gathered, yet the rifts felt deeper than the cracks in the old wooden floorboards beneath their feet. "All right, everyone," he began, swallowing hard as he stepped forward. His voice trembled slightly, but he pushed through. "Thank you for coming." He spotted Mia in the crowd, her small frame barely visible but her unwavering gaze powerful enough to anchor his resolve. "We all know why we're here. Tom needs us." A murmur rippled through the room, a mix of agreement and dissent. Jake felt his heart race, pounding against his ribcage. "This isn't just about Tom," he pressed on, trying to elevate the conversation above the clouds of doubt. It's about us. All of us. Echoes of dissent floated in the air. Why should we help him? What about our struggles? One man shouted, resentment dripping from his words. Jake swallowed hard at the hostility. He could feel eyes narrowing, waiting for him to falter. I get it, believe me. This town has been through the ringer. But if we can't stand together for one of our own, how can we ever stand for anything? Compassion should be our common ground. A few heads nodded, whispers mingling with the rustling of chairs. But doubt lingered like smoke after a fire. Then, unexpectedly, Margaret, the town's librarian and a woman who often kept to herself, stood up. Jake's right. We've all been so caught up in our own struggles that we've forgotten what it means to be a community. Her voice quivered but rang strong, commanding attention. I've seen firsthand how giving a little can mean the world. That man fought for us. Now we need to fight for him. A couple of people exchanged looks, their hardened expressions softening just enough to spark a glimmer of hope. Jake seized the moment, his pulse quickening. That's it. We can organize a fundraiser, a gathering. We can pitch in our skills and resources. If each one of us contributes even something small, we can make a real impact. The energy shifted, he could feel it. The discussions began to shift, arguments giving way to ideas. What if we had a cook-off? Everyone brings their best dish. Another woman suggested, excitement bubbling beneath her initial uncertainty. Yes. And we can set up booths to share what Millfield has to offer. Someone else chimed in. Slowly but surely, barriers began to crack. As heads started nodding in agreement, a warm energy spread through the room, bridging the chasms that had kept them apart. Laughter began to bubble amidst the serious discussions as plans took shape. Jake felt a swell of triumph welling up inside him. Could it be? Were they really coming together? His fears started to recede. They just needed a spark, a reason to believe in one another, and maybe just maybe they were finding that reason. But before he could fully relish the victory, he noticed a handful of residents on the outskirts, still wearing skeptical expressions. A familiar tension crept back, reminding him that the journey was hardly over. This wouldn't be the final answer. Just as he was about to voice his hope, the mayor, who had been sitting silently, raised a hand to speak. All eyes turned toward him, the quiet heavy with anticipation. Jake's stomach dropped. Was this ominous silence a warning sign? What would he say next, and would it lead them back to division? Would today be the turning point they needed, or was another storm brewing? The mayor cleared his throat, breaking the heavy silence. His eyes scanned the crowd, searching for connection among the weary yet hopeful faces. I appreciate Jake's initiative and Margaret's support, he began, his voice steady. But we need to ensure our approach is practical. Fundraisers take time and resources we may not have right now. A ripple of anxiety swept through the audience. Jake felt the weight of the mayor's pragmatism pressing against the momentum they had built. But he couldn't let that dampen his resolve. What do we have to lose? He interjected. If they can't come together for a man who has dedicated his life to this community, when will they ever unite? We can't just sit back and wait for the perfect moment. The mayor raised an eyebrow, intrigued but cautious. It's not about waiting for the perfect moment, Jake. It's about ensuring we do this the right way. We need a plan. Then let us create one. Jake shouted, his heart racing as adrenaline surged through him. We can brainstorm ideas tonight and form committees to prepare. We all have talents we can use, whether in cooking or organizing. We can make this work together. Margaret stepped forward, the fire in her eyes lighting a path for others to follow. What if we invite local musicians to perform? We can draw in more people, support local artists, and raise awareness for Tom's situation at the same time. Right. Someone called from the back. And what if we organized a raffle or a bake sale? Everyone loves a good pie. Lively chatter erupted throughout the room. Panic from the mayor's earlier words began to dissolve, and laughter echoed off the walls as ideas bounced around like electric sparks. Seeing the shift, Jake's spirits lifted. Their small town, once divided by doubt, was now spinning with creativity and passion, but amid the growing excitement, Jake's gaze fell on the people in the back, the skeptics. They still stood stiffly, arms folded tightly across their chests, sharing hushed whispers among themselves. The specters of doubt lingered, threatening to overshadow the hope that had begun to blossom. "Let us not forget our friends back there," Jake called out, pointing to the group. "What do you think? How can we bring you into this?" Their faces contorted with uncertainty, but one figure, a tall man, stooped with age, stepped up, his voice heavy. "We're tired, son. Tired of hoping for change that never comes." Jake felt his heart clench. This wasn't just a town meeting, these were lives affected day in and day out. "I get that," he replied, feeling the emotion rise, "but hope is all we have sometimes. If we work together, we might just create the change we've been waiting for. We owe it to Tom, and to each other." The tall man nodded slowly, finally uncrossing his arms. The small gesture brought a wave of encouragement. Others in the back began to shift forward, their stoic expressions unraveling just a bit as the hum of ideas grew louder. Jake cast a glance at Mia, who wore a brilliant smile on her face. She beamed with pride. Was this the turning point? But just as hope reached its peak, the town's fire siren blared outside, slicing through the warmth. It echoed through the town hall, a stark reminder of the realities they faced, pulling at the threads of their celebration. Jake felt uncertainty creep back in, realizing they may face an urgent crisis that could change everything. What awaited them beyond those doors? Would they unite in that moment of truth, or was this newfound enthusiasm about to face its toughest test yet? The siren wailed longer than anyone expected, a shrill cry shattering their momentum. It sent a jolt of anxiety through the crowd. Faces that had been lit with newfound hope now turned gray with worry. Jake's heart raced. He had never enjoyed the steady hum of his small town so much as he did in that moment. And now, the sound of the fire siren felt like a warning bell. The warmth in the room evaporated like steam in the morning sun. He glanced at the mayor, whose brow was furrowed with concern. "Everyone, please listen." The mayor shouted, trying to regain control. "We need to find out what is happening and see how we can help. Let us stay calm and organized." Some of the crowd shuffled toward the exit, urgency in their voices. "We can't just sit here," a woman exclaimed, her eyes wide with fear. "What if it's a fire? Or worse?" shouted another, breathing heavily. Jake felt an instinctual pull to lead. "Let us go together," he called, overcoming the rising panic. "Whatever it is, we can handle it as a group. We've just found our strength in here. Let us carry that outside." Mia nodded, her determination shining through. "Jake's right. If we leave together, we won't just be a crowd, we'll be a community." Slowly, the skeptics began to move too, trailing behind the hopeful faces. The tall man Jake had spoken to before lingered a moment, his expression mixing uncertainty with a flicker of trust. As they stepped outside, the cool night air hit, a refreshing contrast to the heat of the hall. But the scene before them was anything but comforting. A small plume of smoke swirled up into the night sky like a ghost. Fire trucks parked haphazardly along Main Street, lights flashing, illuminating the darkening sky. A crowd had gathered, some talking animatedly while others stood in shock. Jake's heart sank when he scanned for familiarity. "Where's Tom?" he murmured, his voice almost inaudible. "Over there." Mia pointed, her eyes wide. In the distance, he spotted Tom, the beloved town mechanic, crouched at the edge of his garage. He was pushing a barrel of flaming debris away from the building, sweat glistening on his brow. The sight snapped Jake into action. "We can help," he shouted, rushing forward. He waved back to the crowd, beckoning them to follow. "Let us do what we can. We need to form a bucket line, grab whatever we can to put out those flames." The crowd surged behind him, leaving fear in their wake. Jake felt a surge of energy as he rallied the townsfolk, their recent conversation about teamwork igniting once more. Neighbors who had kept their distance now rallied to work side by side. "Grab that hose!" shouted someone as Jake reached for a large container of water. Together, they lugged it over to Tom. With every helping hand, laughter came back between the shouts, like the gentle lifting of a cloud. "Dump it right here," Tom commanded, pulling another piece of flaming debris with a few others. Jake felt the weight of the world on his shoulders, but every drop of water they passed along felt like an act of defiance against doubt. Moments turned into minutes, and the flames began to shrink, the smoke dissipating. They were stronger than fear, stronger than the darkness that had lingered just moments before. Jake's heart swelled with a blend of pride and disbelief as he looked around at all those faces, now flushed with purpose, but even as they conquered one challenge, Jake felt a profound weight press against his chest. What if this moment of unity left them craving more? What would they do when the emergency subsided? Would they channel this newfound spirit into something lasting, meaningful? Just then, a sudden explosion of light cut through his thoughts. A firework had burst overhead, a celebration of survival. Hope. Jake's heart raced. The echoes of the siren replayed in his mind, reminding him of their potential for both crisis and community. What if this was the spark they needed to ignite their future together? But as he glanced at the now tamed flames, he couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning of something bigger. There was a fragile thread connecting all of them now, and it demanded to be tested. What would they do next? Would they truly come together as one? The night was heavy with possibility. The answer loomed just on the horizon. The fire crackled softly now, a mere shadow of its earlier fury. Jake stood among the townspeople, their faces illuminated by the distant bursts of colors overhead. The fireworks signaled a moment of victory, yet an unshakable tension hung in the air. They had fought back the flames, but the question loomed, was this just a fleeting moment, or the start of something lasting? "Let us clean up," someone yelled, breaking Jake's reverie. It was Selma, an older woman with a no-nonsense attitude and a knack for keeping everyone organized. "We can't just leave the mess here." The crowd, still vibrating with excitement, rallied around her call. Jake felt the shake of hands, the slap on backs, expressions flickering between exhaustion and exhilaration. He joined in, hauling debris, cutting gathered branches, shouting instructions that felt more like cheerleading. "Over there." He pointed, eager to keep everyone moving. "Let us stack this wood, it can be useful." Mia was beside him, her face still radiant in the glow of shared effort. "Look at us," she exclaimed, taking a moment to survey the group. "We're actually doing this together." Their collective laughter rang through the chilly air, banishing any remaining shadows of fear. For the first time in a long time, Jake felt their community coalesce into something special. Yet, beneath the surface of joy, he sensed a stirring unease. As they stacked the last of the debris, Tom wiped his brow, his face a mix of relief and fatigue. "You all really stepped up tonight," he said, pride shining in his eyes. "I think we may have just saved the garage and a lot more." Jake wanted to believe him. Everyone had come together, but he couldn't shake the feeling that unless they found a way to hold on to this energy, it might slip away like the fire's last flickers. "What do we do now?" he asked, his voice rising slightly over the chatter. "I say we celebrate," a voice called from the back of the crowd. It was Eric, a jovial soul who always seemed to know how to lighten a mood. "Fireworks are cool, but what about a barbecue? We can close Main Street and just party." A wave of murmurs swept through the crowd. Some laughed, some nodded in agreement. A barbecue? It felt so right. Jake turned to Mia, whom he trusted more than anyone else. "What do you think? Can we do this?" "Absolutely," she replied, her enthusiasm infectious. "Let us turn this scary night into a memory." We'll need volunteers for food, music, everything. For a fleeting moment, Jake felt a rush of hope. Was this how they could keep the flame of unity alive? By celebrating not just survival, but each other. Tom, overhearing their plan, chimed in. Count me in. I've got a grill that could feed an army. The crowd erupted with cheers. Jake glanced around, his heart swelling. Could this truly be the beginning of something bigger? He caught the eye of the tall man who had hesitated earlier. We could really use everyone's input. Let us make this about all of us. As they began to set up for the gathering, sparks of excitement ignited everywhere. People pulled out their phones, texting friends, sharing the news. The energy shifted. It wasn't just a party. It was a chance to remember this night, the night they all defied fear together, but just when victory felt within grasp, the fire trucks rumbled back into position, and that's when Jake noticed it, the fire chief waving his hands urgently, a look of alarm on his face. The crowd's laughter faded, tension creeping back in as they turned toward the vehicles. What now? Jake whispered, dread pooling in his stomach. And in the murmur of disbelief, he feared he knew the answer. Was this night really over, or would they need to face another challenge soon? What awaited them just beyond the horizon? The glow of celebration dimmed slightly, anticipation now braided with uncertainty. The fire chief, his face taut with urgency, stepped toward the crowd. His voice cut through the air, deep and commanding. I need your attention. The laughter and chatter faded completely as all eyes turned to him, apprehension thrumming like an undercurrent. There's been another blaze reported on the east end of town. The words hung in the air, a heavy weight that crushed their brief moment of unity. We're not out of the woods. We need to stay alert. I'd like volunteers to help. A tense silence followed, punctuated only by the crackle of the remaining embers in the distance. Jake's heart raced. What does that mean? He asked, almost to himself. Mia placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. We can't let fear dictate our actions. We've already faced so much together. We can do this again. The fire chief cleared his throat, his expression somber. We need eyes on the perimeter. If the wind shifts, we could be in trouble. Who will help us? In that moment, Jake felt a surge of determination. He could see the fear in some faces, but also a spark of resolve in others. It wouldn't be easy, but if they could band together once, they could do it again. He took a deep breath, looking around the crowd for familiar faces. I'm in. He called out, raising his hand. Let us show that fire we're not afraid. His voice rang out, steady and sure. One by one, hands began to rise. Tom stepped forward. Count me in too. Then Eric, Selma, and even a few hesitant faces began to join. It was contagious, the way conviction spread through the group. Mia's voice echoed with strength alongside him. This is our home. We'll protect it together. The fire chief's expression softened as he looked around at the rising hands, the faces now resolute. All right. We'll divide into teams. Keep communication open, and let us protect what we have. Jake felt every heartbeat quicken with the growing energy. They rallied, moving toward their cars and gathering equipment. As he grabbed a few buckets, he caught Mia's eye. She smiled brightly, a reminder of what they were fighting for, and he felt the heavy cloak of dread lift slightly. The group splintered off, heading out to various spots, torchlights bobbing like fireflies against the night. Tension still thickened the air but was met with a fierceness that Jake had never felt before. As they spread out to patrol, he and Mia found themselves near the eastern edge of town, where the wind rustled through the trees, carrying an ominous scent of smoke. It hung there, a reminder of the danger still lurking. Stay alert, Jake whispered, scanning the horizon. Do you think it'll actually spread? Mia's tone was measured, balancing hope with caution. I hope not, he replied, but deep down, he felt the gnawing fear that their battle wasn't over yet. The fire had been beaten back once. But what if it wasn't over? Just then, a strange flicker of light caught his eye in the distance. Jake squinted. It looked like flames. His breath caught. "Mia, over there!" he shouted, pointing. The fire that had almost been extinguished seemed to flare again. Panic surged through him. They weren't just fighting to protect their home, it was becoming personal. "Let us go." Mia's voice snapped him into motion, urgency sparking once more between them. The racing of their hearts echoed their footsteps as they took off towards the danger. What if this time was different? What if the fire was stronger than before? As they sprinted into the night, uncertainty churned in Jake's gut. And yet, there was a fervent hope mingled with fear. Could they find the strength to protect their home once more? The answer lay just ahead, hidden under the smoke. Would they be ready when it came? The flames danced wildly in the distance, silhouetted against the dark sky like ribbons of anger. Jake's heart raced as he and Mia charged forward, the heat intensifying with each step. It was more than just a flicker now, a fire was raging, testing their resolve and the strength of their community. "Jake, keep your head," Mia shouted over the roar of the wind. She was right by his side, her determination pushing him to move faster. The adrenaline coursed through him, but so did uncertainty. Would they really be enough? As they rounded a corner, they came to a clearing. The fire crackled like an angry beast, consuming dry brush at an alarming rate. Jake's breath hitched in his throat. He had seen destruction before, but this felt different. This was no longer an abstract threat. This was real, and it was here, invading the very heart of their town. "We need to form a line," Mia yelled. Jake nodded, the urgency in her voice spurring him into action. They rushed back, rounding up others who had gathered along the path. Faces were lit with fear and determination. So many had come to help. Tom and Eric were already moving people into position. "We need to create a barrier," Tom said, his voice steady despite the chaos unfolding. Eric grabbed a shovel from a nearby truck. He started digging a line in the earth, while others piled dirt into buckets, passing them down the line to douse the flames creeping closer. It felt like a heartbeat, the way everyone moved together, passing buckets, shouting encouragement, and losing themselves in the mission. There was a rhythm to it, fear and hope intertwining. "Get ready," Jake called out, spotting a flare of flames licking towards an old wooden shed. "Focus on that spot." Jake and Mia were right on their neighbor's heels. He glanced sideways at her. She was a beacon of strength, her focus unwavering. It fueled him, driving away the doubts that had crept in before. "We can do this," he shouted, finding his voice amid the mounting noise. But as they battled the encroaching flames, the wind shifted suddenly, sending embers scattering in all directions. The air became heavy with smoke, encasing them in a choking embrace. It was a fight against the fire and the very elements that had once felt like home. "Keep moving," Mia coughed, thrusting water at him. "We need to put water on those embers." Jake dove forward, heart hammering in his chest. That's when he saw it, a red glow beyond the shed. His stomach lurched. "There's another fire," he yelled, pointing toward the thick brush. "We've got to split up." "No. We need to stay together." Mia grabbed his arm as panic flickered in her eyes. But Jake felt it, the urgency of the moment, the instinct to split the threat. "We'll go. If we can contain that one, we can save more." The desperation in his voice startled them both, but it was too late, it was already decided. Mia's jaw tightened, reluctantly nodding as she pulled him closer. "We do this together then." With quick glances exchanged, they set off for the other blaze, anxiety still tugging at their hearts. Each step felt like pushing through mud, but they wouldn't stop. They had to keep moving. And just as hope flickered in Jake's chest, something tugged at him from the back of his mind, an unshakable feeling. What if this wasn't just a fight against fire, but a chance to become who they were meant to be? What if there was more at stake than just their homes? As they neared the second blaze, a loud crack echoed just behind them. They turned, eyes wide in shock. Something had just fallen, and it was heading straight toward the crowd. "Look out!" Mia screamed, shoving Jake out of the way as chaos erupted. What would happen next? Would their community be torn apart, or could they rise to meet the challenge? Jake's heart raced, wondering if they could find the strength to stand together one last time. The ground trembled beneath them as an old tree, weakened by flames and fierce winds, crashed to the earth with a thunderous roar. Jake's heart plummeted as he turned back just in time to see the massive trunk coming down, the crowd caught in their own panic. Time seemed to stretch, each second endlessly heavy. "Get down!" shouted Tom, his voice rising above the cacophony of fear. People scrambled to avoid the oncoming disaster. Jake felt Mia's hand grip his arm tightly as she pulled him further from the imminent danger. The dust cloud from the falling tree enveloped them. It was like a storm, chaotic and suffocating. Jake coughed violently, trying to catch his breath, but the dust mixed with smoke made it harder to see. When the air began to clear, he realized with dread that the tree had fallen right into the middle of their makeshift barrier. "Stay together," parried Mia, her eyes darting from side to side. There was something fierce in her expression, a spark that reminded Jake of the fierce fire they were fighting. But uncertainty washed over him. The chaos was threatening to spin out of control. "We can help them. We can shift the tree," he yelled above the mounting confusion. Mia hesitated, surveying the scene. "It's too risky, Jake. We need to regroup." But Jake could see the fear in the eyes of those around him, how they were beginning to falter. He locked eyes with Mia. "If we don't act now, they might not get back up. We have to do this." Without waiting for a response, he sprinted towards the tree, adrenaline coursing through him. He felt the pulse of the crowd behind him, their determination flickering like the fire consuming the forest beyond. "Jake!" Mia's voice was distant, yet he could hear her resolve chasing him. He approached the shredded ground where the tree had fallen, its massive trunk blocking the path to safety for his neighbors. "Let us move it," he shouted to a group nearby. With a few sturdy hands willing to join, they grabbed hold. The weight of the tree was palpable, but with every shove, they heaved against it, muscles straining. "On three," Jake called, pushing every ounce of strength he had into it. 1, 2, 3. They pushed, their feet sliding against the dirt, but slowly, they began to shift the tree. Encouragement rang out from the crowd. "Keep going," someone yelled. "We can do this." And that simple phrase became a chorus, urging them forward. With one final heave, the tree rolled ever so slightly, creating just enough space for people to escape the danger. But the fire still loomed, and amidst the cheers and relief, the heat pressed in even harder. Jake turned to see Mia, tears glistening on her cheeks but a fierce smile lighting up her face. "You did it," she shouted, rushing towards him. "We did it," he corrected, catching his breath. They embraced, relief flooding over him like a cool wave. But then a fresh screech split the air, drawing everyone's attention. A swarm of embers had lifted, ignited by the wind, swirling dangerously close to a nearby home. The fire was spreading, and their fight wasn't over. "Mia, we've got to move." Jake's pulse quickened again. "If we don't get to it fast, we'll lose the entire row of houses." He met her gaze, exchanging the unspoken assurance that they would get through this together. But the stakes were escalating, and they would need more than the strength of their bodies. They needed unity. The heart of their community needed to beat stronger than the flames. As they raced toward the new threat, hearts pounding, a voice echoed in Jake's mind, urging him to remember the true power of their bond. Could they really unite everyone, even as fear and smoke twisted around them? Could they pull together the very fabric of their town and make a stand? What was Jake yet to discover deep within himself as the blaze raged on? The heat intensified as Jake and Mia sprinted toward the encroaching flames. The fire had taken on a life of its own, licking its way toward the homes, hungrily searching for more to consume. It clawed at the sky, sending sparks dancing like fireflies in the darkening twilight. "Here! We can use these!" Mia shouted, rushing towards a row of empty buckets lined up near the community well. Jake raced after her, grabbing a couple of buckets while others nearby joined them, forming a makeshift brigade. "Fill them up!" Jake called as he plunged one bucket into the well, feeling cold water splash on his hands. "We'll create a line." As the first bucket filled, he instantly felt hope swell within him. He wasn't alone in this fight, others were stepping up, just as determined as he was. They passed the filled buckets down the line, each person running back to refill before returning to the front lines. "Come on, everyone!" Someone yelled, echoing the urgency in Jake's heart. "We can't let it reach the houses." The community, once fractured by chaos, now moved together like a well-rehearsed team. The rhythm of their movements echoed like a heartbeat, not just his, but the entire town's. With every splash of water they hurled, Jake felt the fire's grip weaken, a small victory against the monstrous inferno. "Mia, over there." He pointed out a particularly fiery spot that had ignited a thick bush, creating a perilous beacon for the flames. "If we don't get that under control, we'll be in real trouble." Nodding, she powered down the line, retrieving another bucket. Jake followed closely, their footsteps echoing the pulsing urgency of the moment. They arrived just as the next wave of heat enveloped them, making it difficult to breathe. "Here. Now!" Jake called, trying to rally a few others who were nearby. The team around him grabbed their buckets, their resolve set. "Let us go." They poured the water with all their might, a vibrant cocoon of determination surrounding them as they battled against the flames. The fire hissed as splashes met the orange glow, battling fiercely against them, but just as they began to feel that surge of victory, a roaring gust of wind howled through the trees, whipping the flames higher. Sparks leaped and scattered, igniting more of the dry brush. The heat was overwhelming now, searing their skin, forcing them to retreat a step back. "We can't back down," Mia shouted, taking a deep breath. "We need to fight for every inch." Her words settled like a lifeline in the chaos swirling around them. Jake exchanged a look with her, the determination in her eyes igniting a fire within him, one that fought back against the fear suffocating them. Grabbing her hand, he took a step forward. "Together," he said, his voice steady. "We do this together. Everyone. Listen up." The crowd turned to him, wide-eyed. He quickly gathered his thoughts, recalling the stories of their shared moments, barbecues, celebrations, hardships before this fire. They had rolled through life as a neighborhood. Now, they stood at the frontier of survival. "This is our home. Our community. Let us protect it. For each other." The words resonated among the crowd, and their spirits seemed to lift, even if just a little. They all surged forward, each person pouring their last reserves of strength into the fight. Water splashed wildly, and as they pressed forward, something in Jake shifted. He wasn't just a bystander anymore, he was part of something greater, a family unified by the fire that threatened to tear them apart. Suddenly, an agonizing scream pierced through the air. It was a cry for help. Jake turned, heart racing. It was a child trapped inside one of the homes, the flames closing in. Without hesitation, he sprang into action, already racing towards the chaos. "Mia! Stay here. Get everyone to safety." "Jake, no." Her voice echoed in his mind, but he couldn't back down now. As he raced toward the house, he thought, was this truly his moment? Could he be the hero he never believed he could be? His leap towards danger had only just begun. Would he find a way to save the child before it was too late? Jake charged forward, adrenaline fueling his every step. The fire crackled angrily, licking at the wooden beams of the home like a ravenous beast. He had to be quick, time was slipping away, and there was no room for doubt. His heart pounded wildly as he reached the front door, heat radiating off the frame like a warning sign. "Mia!" He yelled behind him, hoping she would rally the others. He needed them to stay focused. Every ounce of courage surged through him as he pushed the door open, the heat slashing at his skin. He stepped inside, eyes adjusting to the chaos of flickering flames and thick smoke. "Hello? Is anyone there?" His voice echoed, an anchor in the unseen turmoil. He scanned the dimly lit area, his heart thrumming in rhythm with the crackling fire. Suddenly, he heard a faint whimper from upstairs. Without a second thought, he darted toward the staircase, each step creaking under the weight of his urgency. Reaching the upstairs hallway, smoke filled the air, stinging his eyes. He fought through it, calling out desperately for the child. "I'm coming. Hold on." The distant cries tugged at something deeper within him, the desire to protect, to save. Just then, a small figure emerged, barely visible through the haze. It was a boy, trembling and wide-eyed, trapped in a corner, fear etched across his face. "Help!" The boy screamed, eyes darting dangerously toward the fire creeping closer. Jake dropped to his knees, extending an arm toward him. "I'm right here. You have to come to me." He felt a rush of determination swell within him as the child hesitated, glancing back at the flames licking up the walls. "Please," Jake urged, his voice steadier than he felt. "I won't let anything happen to you." The boy met his gaze, trust flickering like the embers around them. Slowly, he crawled toward him, and Jake's heart surged with hope. "Get behind me!" Jake shouted, scooping the boy up in his arms just as flames roared above them. He turned to make his way back down the stairs, feeling the oppressive heat pressing against them. Suddenly, the floor creaked ominously. Jake hesitated, a wave of panic washing over him. "Hold on tight!" he yelled, bursting into a sprint down the stairs, each step a prayer for safety. They burst through the front door, the cool night air striking them like a lifeline. Jake stumbled onto the lawn, dropping to his knees as he set the boy down gently. "You did it!" he exclaimed, wiping sweat and soot from his forehead. A wave of relief crashed over him, and Mia rushed forward, tears of joy glistening in her eyes. "You scared me!" she cried, wrapping her arms around him. The embrace felt like healing, grounding him against the chaos unraveling around them. "Is he okay?" she asked, glancing at the boy, still trembling but safe. "Yeah, he's all right," Jake replied, voice shaking with the warmth of triumph. The child looked up at them with bright, grateful eyes. In that moment, surrounded by the dancing flames and the community rallying behind them, he felt something shift. It wasn't just about extinguishing fires anymore, it was about rebuilding bonds, stitching the fabric of their town together. "Let us keep moving!" shouted Tom, rallying others, bringing the town back to life. The community sprang into action once more, working together, blending their strengths and pooling their resources. Laughter broke through the clouds of smoke, echoing through the night as they formed human chains, passing buckets of water and creating barriers against the fire. Every splash felt meaningful, binding them closer together. Adrenaline coursed through Jake's veins, fueling him as he joined the effervescent wave of belief moving through Millfield. Minutes turned into hours as they faced the flames bravely. Through every moment of fear, laughter erupted, and cheers echoed across the smoky horizon. They learned to lean on one another, to share not just burdens but dreams too. "Look!" someone shouted, pointing toward the flames dwindling as the sun began to rise, casting gold upon the horizon. "It's working!" Jake glanced up and saw it, there. Community pulling together like never before. Hearts beat as one, defying the inferno with friendship and resilience. As the last flickers of the fire sputtered out, cheers erupted, shouts of victory resonating in the air. Jake felt a profound shift within him, a sense of belonging stronger than any he'd felt before. They had fought the fire, but they had also conquered the fears that had held them apart for so long. That he turned to Mia, the sunlight glinting off her face as she beamed with pride. "We did it!" she exclaimed, pulling him in for a tight embrace. The crowd rejoiced around them, celebrating not just survival but a new beginning, a bond forged in flames. Where once there was only distance, Jake looked out at the faces of his neighbors, realizing that this fight had sparked something beautiful. "We're stronger together," he shouted, and their voices rose in unison, a chorus of hope trailing into the new dawn that it was time to rebuild Millfield, not just as a town, but as a family. They breathed life back into their community, redefining what home truly meant. And as they stood there, together, surrounded by the warmth of their shared victories, Jake knew they would never let fear divide them again. Together, they had found their hearts, and they would face whatever came next, united and unstoppable. Now is the time to support this journey. You need to subscribe now if you haven't already. This is the moment to show your support, so leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Share your reactions in the comments, tell us your feelings about this incredible ending. And don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. The power of community is real, and it starts with you.